Well, a lot of you might be shocked. I'm not. But let's get to it. There's a lot of people out there in the world that wants to know why, right? Like why Logic? The Joe Budden podcast, mainly Joe Budden, comes out and gives his opinions on Logic. Nobody has gotten the brunt of being called the worst rapper ever, like Logic has, which was shocking to me because I've heard Logic actually be good on a lot of records. I understand what Joe is talking about. You know, when it comes to Logic, he explains himself quite well, but the way he delivers it in the tone that he does, it comes from a person who has some type of disdain for the artist. Doesn't come from a positive place or a place of non-biasness. Something's going on here. Now we try to figure out, like, what is Joe's problem? Right? So we look at the situation in totality and say, okay, let's figure out what Joe's problem is here. Now, all the way back when he's listening to the album and he goes, oh man, talked about the first project and said this might actually be the worst rapper ever, and goes over his verse and picks it apart. And it's a very subpar verse. The thing is that Logic sounds like he should be really good. His flow is on point. His flow patterns and everything is like okay, but the words and what he's using is so bland. It's like a suburbanite who's trying to rap about what's going on in the hood. It sounds like that, and it don't sound like authentic, like he's actually been in the hood. It sounds like somebody who's trying to rap about the hood who hadn't been there. It's a that should be the best explanation I can give you for it. So when you see that, you go, "Wow, this situation here is difficult to say the least." And even though it's hard to explain, it's simple for people who gets it. So anyhow, I've heard way worse artists than Logic. Let's be honest. Logic isn't that bad. And for you guys who didn't know, Logic, I've known Logic, was aware of him before he was super popular. And even though he was super popular, I mean super popular with all the backpack people and everyone else. Now, when Logic first came out, he had an album. They called him Psychological, and he was on the mixtape circuit. Because, like I told you, like the other rapper Ideas, he was looked at in that fashion. He was psychological as he was rapping, and then I guess he got with somebody who told him that makes it's too long for people to remember Logic. That'll be your name. So he went from psychological to logic. And from there, he started calling himself Bobby Tarantino, Young Sinatra. Had a bunch of the Young Sinatra mixtapes, and one of them we had when we were in Las Vegas. Somebody got us the tape, and from that point on, somebody was playing it, and that was that. Like, dude got some flow. It's the next Eminem, and somebody just said that jokingly. Next thing you know, by 2014, he got an album out. He's got a contract with Def Jam. Now, what people didn't know is that after his last album that released, the one that got the publicity and everything, Paul Rosenberg started getting involved with Logic. That's Eminem's manager. He starts getting up with Logic and trying to put Logic and Eminem together to where Eminem is like his idol, and he's under Eminem. He goes to Def Jam. Every artist there budget is cut, and they can't get any promotion for their albums. Nothing's moving. All the money is geared towards Logic. So, of course, Logic's album in 2017, the one that had everybody, that album, had done really well. But his last album, it got some commercial success, but nothing like they thought it was going to be. And they were like, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. This isn't really working out. Now, during this whole ordeal, Eminem gets into a war of words with, what's his face, Joe Budden. Joe goes on his podcast show and lay Eminem a new one. And it was what brought the fans in. Because Joe was authentic. He was 100% not controlled. He was 100% going to say everything that other people that has been associated with Eminem has never been in position to say. As if they were afraid of what would happen. He was protected. He had everything surrounding him that was going to protect him. Because how Eminem fights is a lot different than how all the other rappers fight. He fights behind the scenes and try to stop people from feeding their families because he doesn't like what they said. So Joe goes through the roof. You mention me, millions of views. I mention you, lose, lose, and lose. So anyway, Eminem is upset at Joe. Right? Joe's mentioned on a record, which gives Joe Budden the opportunity and feels like it gives him the green light to just destroy him on his show. Now, since then, because Royce is friends with Eminem and he's friends with Joe, that I was surprised that Royce was still allowed to be friends with Joe after that whole thing went down with Joe on the show. Like, whoa, this is un-Eminemish. He's still cool with Royce when this situation happened. So there were a lot of conversations behind closed doors that led to Joe changing his whole tune and the fact that Eminem wasn't mentioning Joe anymore. But in return, Joe has to take his foot off the neck of Eminem. You said what you had to say. It's done. Don't do it again. So Joe Budden goes out of his way to kiss up to Eminem now. Why is that? Saying, well, my only beef was with Paul. That was my only real beef. It wasn't really with Eminem. It was more with Paul. Paul, all of a sudden, didn't like that. Because Paul has logic. Paul was the guy that was behind pushing Logic. So Eminem and Logic do a song together. Joe goes in there and he soft toes around that record. Eminem new album comes out, he soft toes around that. Then he still goes after Logic. Goes at him pretty hard when Logic says he's going to retire. He goes destructo mode on Logic. Right? Very harsh for a rapper who says, I'm just going to retire. Then he realizes that, wait a minute, this guy is still associated with Paul. He gets the word via behind the scenes that Paul, the guy he can't stand, who's Eminem's manager, is still friends and in alignment with Logic. The guy who basically lost his job and quit at Def Jam after he blew all the budget money on Logic. Now, without Paul there, Logic's gonna retire. And he just signed an exclusive deal with Twitch, saying this is going to be my last album and I'm done. I need to focus on my family. Logic, who just got married again, like right away after divorcing the first wife, gets married again, like right after that, to another chick, but that's Logic's personal garbage that doesn't get mentioned on social media. Now, if he was Kanye West or Meek Mill, it'd be everywhere. I mean, he could be a lower tier rapper, and I've seen all of their relationships on social media. That doesn't get mentioned. This guy must have sold tens of millions of records. Nah, wrong. But he would have had the budget of an artist who did. Logic makes the most of his money on tours, doing shows. When he tours, he goes out the country, anywhere it's packed. So they'll come see him live perform, but won't buy his records. Now, Logic isn't white, he's mixed, which means he's mixed. His mother's white, his father's black. They promote that to give him a more of a street like, look, he's really street. He's really hip hop. He's mixed. He's not a white guy, but he dresses up like a suburban white kid. And they push that notice of, look at this white guy rap. But he's mixed, and he always throws that card when it comes to the African American media. But the mainstream media looks at him and treats him as a white artist. So now Joe comes out and apologized to Logic for what he said. Why would Joe apologize? Because Joe is working on a possible reunion with Slaughterhouse and a possible working project with Royce. Getting things back together with the guys. For some project down the line. And he wants to keep peace with his relationship. And he realized that Spotify don't have his back as much as he thinks he does. And the fact that Joe Budden podcast don't own their IP. That Spotify owns it. And if Eminem wanted to enough, the Joe Budden podcast can be reduced to cinder. So let all that sink in, and definitely follow my page. It's your boy Carcino here. My Cash App is Carcino, Karceno. And definitely, I want to thank everybody who donated to Jenny's page yesterday in the live stream. I want to personally thank you guys. You guys really reinvigorated her to go live again and start doing it. She had so much fun yesterday doing it. And that's what it's about. You know, it didn't take a lot of us. It didn't break us to donate to her page and, support her. Like I said, take $1, $2. That's it. Somebody get inspired to go and do something. So you guys got our spirits up. Now, as for the rest of you, I want to say thanks for watching my video. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe. Hit the notification bell, select all. And yeah, I think that's it. The Patreon video, yeah, we got some more interesting things to talk about. We talked about on the Patreon how Kanye West got into fashion. What he had to do in order to get there. Very shocking and very surprising. And many of you had never heard of it until now. So go check that out. I'm out.